Well, good evening, everybody. This is Keith with Positively Osceola. Welcome to another episode of our evening coffee club discussion. And some people say it's just an excuse for me to drink coffee, and that is not true because I don't need an excuse to do that. I enjoy my coffee. And so it's not an excuse. It's not a prop. It's for real. Hey, special night tonight. Very cool night tonight. I'm going to introduce Antranette Forbes from the city of St. Cloud. I'm going to bring her in right now. Bam! And there she is. How are you tonight?
Very well, thank you.
It is a beautiful night out. It's not raining where I'm at. Is it raining where you are? Kind of?
No, it's perfect weather right now. It's dewy but not rainy.
Cool. Was raining earlier. We actually ventured out. My family ventured out. Some people probably thought it was a little insane, but today was the first day for one of the major theme parks. Certainly, some of the theme parks like Wild Florida and such, if you call it a theme park, they've been open and doing some great things with the safari park and all that. But this was one of the big days for theme park goers and for the theme parks. We went out to Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure, and we did that. Kind of a test thing and kind of went out and enjoyed ourselves, and it was pretty darn hot out there.
It sounds like a fabulous weekend.
Yeah, so we had fun out there in our masks running around the theme park. A little something different for sure. Right. Hey, let me let people know a little bit about you if you don't mind, and we want you to be talking a lot more than I talk tonight for sure, but we're really super honored that you would join us tonight. And I'm very excited about the things you're going to share tonight for the community, for the small businesses, for organizations. And so let me just kind of give people a brief rundown of who you are and what you've done. So again, your name Antranette Forbes, and you're the Economic Development and Special Projects Manager for the City of St. Cloud. Your responsibilities include the development and implementation of programs that promote economic vitality and strong financial stability in the city. More than 18 years of economic development experience. You have a wealth of leadership experience ranging from capital improvement projects and business development to alternative finance. It says in her most recent previous role with the Lee County Economic Development Office, you were responsible for the compliance management of the $25 million incentive portfolio and served as the fiscal officer for the Industrial Development Authority and Horizon Foundation, a 501c3 organization established to invest long-term economic growth into the community. Your career highlights include spearheading the annual SWFL Women's Business Summit, creating the Greater Miami Gardens Chamber of Commerce, and co-authoring a $1.43 million federal grant for the workforce training from the United States Department of Labor. In 2019, you were named one of the 100 Successful Women in Business awarded by the Global Trade Chamber. You have a Master's in Public Administration from Nova Southeastern University and are a graduate of the Development Finance Professional Program from the Council of Development Finance Agencies. So that is a mouthful because you've achieved so much. And so we are very, very honored and very glad that you're part of St. Cloud. This is an important city and a well-loved city for sure. And so we are excited that you're here, part of St. Cloud. And so I wanted to share those accolades and those accomplishments, and then really just kind of go from here. So good evening. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
So tonight, we've all been, we're all quite aware, businesses, organizations, individuals, certainly impacted by so much in 2020. Although most organizations, most businesses, and small businesses specifically are very resilient, sometimes you can take a hit that really knocks you off keel, knocks you off path, and it can be difficult to restart, to reboot, and to get yourself back on a forward motion. So I know you and the city of St. Cloud have put some plans forth and very clear about how businesses and organizations can take advantage of that. So I'm just going to turn this over to you and just inform the community those opportunities that exist and how they might go about participating in them.
Well, thank you. First, I'm really excited to be here. I don't get the opportunity to get out as much as I'd like to talk to a lot of our local businesses. That's one of my key objectives pre-COVID that I was working on doing. But this is a great portal to allow me to do, to reach the masses in a small snippet. So one of the things that I really want to talk about is the city's economic stimulus and recovery plan.
Right.
And I will say one of the things that I think was exceptional on St. Cloud's part, it was immediately the city manager said, we need to come up with some sort of plan to help our local businesses. And I think that's one of the lessons that municipalities learned from the previous recession. They learned that businesses, not just individuals, are affected whenever we go through a recession. And we need to be able to offer support, both financial and technical. And so that was, I think, one of the key elements that we learned from the 2008 recession. And now that we've reached this pinnacle point, it was really important for the city council and administration to take a look at how we as a city can help our businesses reach over to the next level. And by next level, I mean, how do we help them get through this so that they can come out on the other side, maybe not so much unscathed, but a little bit more, with a little bit more resiliency. And so this plan does just that. So the plan itself is a $1.25 million plan. It is funded through two funding sources, one of them being the OUC, which is the Orlando's Utilities Commission Business Retention Fund. $500,000 comes from that. And then the other $750,000 comes from the building department's reserve fund. And so we put those dollars together and tried to figure out what's the best way that we can reach the most amount of businesses. And I'll tell you that the city of St. Cloud has over 1,300 registered businesses. That means that's a lot of businesses that we're trying to touch. And part of those touch points is how can we make the small dollars that we have available the most effective and go the longest without being able to disrupt city services. And so we have three phases. The first phase would be our grant program, which I'll get into in a little bit more detail in just a minute. That first phase is $250,000, which is set aside, which allows direct financial assistance to nonprofits and small businesses. The second phase would be in the form of fee waivers for core municipal services. That phase has yet to be formalized because we as staff are still in the process of creating a plan that helps, again, the greatest amount of businesses possible. And then the third phase would be post-recovery. One of the other key elements that we learned from the last recession is that while businesses may have planned ahead with their own personal reserves, and then there was state and federal funds available, where they started to have the lack was at the very end, where the recession was starting to turn, but yet the federal funding, the state funding had dried up. And there were no more municipal programs available. The funds had dried up. And so what we wanted to do is be the most advantageous with the funds that we have and allow there to be post-recovery efforts. Now, those recovery efforts will be more technical than financial, but there will be a financial piece tied to it as well. And those technical assistance will be in the form of business resiliency. How do we help businesses pivot their business model so that they are more recession-proof? How do we help a business look at its core services and determine what key changes, tweaks can it make so that it rebounds faster when the next recession comes? Because it's never an if, it's always a when. And so we want to make sure that our businesses last as long as they can. And so that is phase three. There is $250,000 set aside in phase three. And if I did not mention, I apologize, there is $750,000 in phase two.
Yes.
So,
and can I just insert real quick? And I'm sorry, because you're the information person here, certainly. So I thought that was, when I first heard that, I thought that was excellent. And what hit me is, so here we are in 2020, and a lot of us are referencing back to 2008 and the time in that time period, basically a decade. And it seems to be, I was in 2008, 2010, I was a member of a Leeds, kind of a networking group, and there were 20, 25 people in that group, like a lot of us. And the temperature and the dynamic of those discussions in that time are very similar to what I'm hearing now. And it's certainly a different scenario, but it comes back to each individual business. And how we're speaking now is very, like I said, is very much a reminder of what that was about 10 years ago. So I loved hearing that there is talk of what happens on that third phase, because I think, and we said this to my son the other day, it's, you have to prepare for when things are not smooth sailing. You've got to prepare for things to be, large bumps in the road. So I'll get back to what you're saying, but I think it's excellent that at the end of this whole cycle, and there will be an end, how do we prepare for that next thing that comes? It's part of being in business, right?
Absolutely. And, to your point, when we think about how we adjust our business model, think about 10 years ago, a lot of businesses, particularly small businesses, they didn't even offer online sales yet. And now here we are having this form of discussion from our homes. I'm in my dining room talking to you. And so being able to still conduct business virtually anywhere, to me, that's a perfect opportunity for businesses to find ways that they can restructure their model, that perhaps they don't need as much overhead, for example, or
Right.
perhaps they are able to siphon off portions of their business that they can outsource, which will cost them cheaper.
Right.
So there's, I give the example of my dry cleaner that I go to, that when they originally closed under the stay-at-home order, it took them weeks to reopen even after they were allowed to do so.
Sure.
And had they, for example, purchased a van, they could do home delivery, and still be open and not allow people to continually come in and potentially contaminate the facility.
Right.
So it's those type of ideas when we talk about pivoting, which is the key word, or restructuring the business model. Those are lessons that we learn as time goes by, of how can we not necessarily prevent the next recession, but how can we harden our business in such a way that we don't feel the impact as much.
Very wise. I knocked you off the path you were on, so go ahead and resume. You can.
No problem. So I can talk about the grants that are available. So our phase 1 grants are, they just opened on Friday evening. And so they are currently available on the website. They are also available if you call or email. They've also been sent out through the Economic Development newsletter, special alerts. So we've tried to get it out as many times and as much as possible. So there are 2 grants, one for small business and the other one for nonprofit. So for the nonprofit, that is for 501c3 and 501c3 related organizations. Those are ones that offer additional COVID assistance. So what we're looking for are nonprofits that maybe they're already providing exceptional work. We're looking for the funds that they are looking for. How will it help them increase their capacity, increase their level of service, increase their ability to do their jobs? If that means hiring an additional staff person, or for example, this meal delivery, if they were serving 100 people a day, can they now, with additional funds, serve 200 per day? How can we help them do what they're doing more as it relates specifically to COVID assistance? The grants are up to $5,000, and the application period is completely open until funds are extinguished. Okay. And total pot of $50,000. So basically, if each recipient receives the total amount, then that is up to 10 awards. For the small business, that one has a $200,000 total funding allocation. And so for that one, we're looking for businesses that have been in business at least 3 years or more. They cannot have been funded by state or federal programs, for example, through the CARES Act. And the reason is, again, we're trying to maximize the dollar. So if they've already received an award from them, unfortunately, they're not available for this round of funding. That is something that we're looking at in phase 2 and phase 3 of what we can do to make sure that we're as inclusive as possible, but making sure that the folks who have not had an opportunity receive the funds that are available. We also are looking for businesses who need working capital, for example, with payroll or equipment purchases or replacement, or they would like to purchase protective gear. So we're leaving it very open intentionally so that businesses can tell us what exactly they need, how were they affected through this crisis, and then how will they use the funds. Both grants, there is a monitoring period, which is between 6 months to 1 year thereafter. And what we're basically just looking for is how did you expend the funds and how did it help your business? We use that reporting, we take that data collection back in order to garner how can we improve the next programming that's available. So I'm going to pause for just a minute to make sure that if you had any follow-up questions from that.
No, I don't know. The only thing that hit me was, I think all too often small businesses, they are so wrapped up inside those four walls. They're working, it's night and day, called mom and pop, however you want to call it. We're that way. We work, it's nonstop and it's your burning passion, but I think when I talk to people, I hear way too often, I'm never going to qualify. It's probably a loan. I don't want a loan because then I have to pay that back. And those are the two things I hear. I'm sure it's already passed. There's nothing I can do. Every time those things come up, I never receive the funds. I hear that all the time. We take so many phone calls, so many messages from everybody saying, is this going to be any different? And we've all been saying to them, you have to be kidding. Make the phone call. Definitely get a hold of City of St. Cloud because this is real. And that's the only thing that hit me just now when you were speaking. I hope that if businesses are listening or if somebody's aware of a business or a nonprofit, reach out to them, let them know this is real and these monies are real.
Yes. And so to that end, let me clarify that this is a grant. This is not a loan. It's not a forgivable loan. It is a grant. The cash or the checks rather will be dispersed directly to the grantee in the business's name. Awesome. But let me also talk about the grant amount a little bit more for the small business. So the award limits are based on the number of employees. So if it's a sole proprietorship, for example, a home-based business or a contractor, they can receive up to $2,500. If they have 2 to 9 employees, they can receive up to $5,000. And 10 employees or more, up to $10,000. Wow. And again, that's done because we're trying to maximize the funding that we have available. Also, I will say to date, as of 5 o'clock this afternoon, we had 11 applications, 8 for small business and 3 for nonprofit. So there is still plenty of time to submit. So we also try to make these applications as simplistic as possible. So we're not asking for you to dredge out all of your 5 years worth of tax returns and payroll records and such.
I think that probably is a dissuader as well. People think that's going to be the case. It's like a completely arduous process. But even if it was an arduous process, you're talking about a grant. $5,000 for a small business, $2,500 is a game changer in the economy right now. It's awesome. I'm going to stay out of your way. Go ahead and continue letting people know.
Yeah, and so that's the interesting thing about government is that it does come across as though government is this huge labyrinth of procedures and processes and policies, and I just want X or I just want Y, whatever that thing is. Right. And so particularly when we're talking about grant money, we are accountable from a staff perspective, just as we are taxpayers just like anyone else, and we have to be good stewards of that funding. So any funding that we award, we have to make sure that we can account for that, and we can say, yes, this was used in the purpose that it was intended to be used for. Awesome. So it does come across sometimes as cumbersome, but we as staff, we are here and available. I believe my number is up on the screen. So if you have any follow-up questions, and I've received follow-up questions from quite a few businesses. What does this question mean? Can you provide me more clarity on what this means? And then we can help walk you through that. Our intention is to be very communicative throughout the process so the applicant knows where they are in that process. We anticipate, in terms of a timeline, it to take approximately 4 weeks from submitted, vetted, responsive application to funding. And what I mean by submitted, vetted, responsive application is all your documentation is in place. Everything that we've requested now we have, and it's under review. If for whatever reason an application comes in and there's something missing, then of course we'll notify them. But it's very important that the business realizes that the clock doesn't start the 4 weeks just because we've received it. It starts once we have a completed application.
Gotcha.
So the other thing I kind of wanted to talk about was some of the other things that we've been doing under the stimulus plan. For example, the City Council adopted a local vendor preference policy about 2 weeks ago. And that's really beneficial to our local businesses, because one of the things that I started doing when I first came to St. Cloud was meet with some of our local businesses and find out, why did you choose St. Cloud? How can we as staff help you? What is it that you're seeking to accomplish? And resoundingly, it's always, well, it'd be great to be able to participate in some of the city contracts. And so while businesses have always been had the opportunity to do so, I think what this ordinance does is it allows them a better competitive advantage to participate. So what it does is it says that if you're a local vendor, and by local that's defined as Osceola County, and I'll go into those definitions a little bit further in just a minute. But if you are an Osceola County business, then you qualify to be competitive with the lowest responsible bidder within 5%. And so an Osceola business would be defined as the owner has a residence in Osceola County. I believe it's 51% of its staff are Osceola County residents. And so it gives a little bit more leeway in terms of that qualifier. That also will qualify for the subcontractors as well. If the majority of your subcontractors are Osceola County residents, you would qualify as a local vendor. So again, that's one of the things we're doing under this COVID assistance to try to help some of our businesses get back to work and keep work coming. The other thing we're working on is our outdoor seating allowance, which basically allows, restaurants to open up their parking lot space and adjoining space to allow for seating to accommodate the social distancing. And that was done through an executive order so that, again, businesses wouldn't suffer because they could not seat at maximum capacity. The other thing that we're working on is we have a tri-party agreement with the city of Kissimmee as well as Osceola County to really promote our Buy Local campaign. And so part of that means that what we want is people to be comfortable, not just patronizing our local businesses, but we also want them to know that these businesses are safe, that they should feel comfortable in knowing that these businesses are operating in best preventative cautionary practices, both with their staff and with their customers. So part of that campaign actually came out from the Back to Work task force that was spearheaded through the county. And so the website is called We've Opened Safely. And what it is it offers businesses resources on many different industries on best practices that they can do to put their customers at ease and to promote safe practices for their employees. Industries such as restaurants and manufacturing and retail, it's all there. What's also there is a We've Opened Safely poster. And this poster, designed through, again, this agreement between the city of Kissimmee and Osceola County, was designed for businesses to put in their storefront. And it basically says, we as a business are committed to you as a consumer and to our employees to operate safely. And we want you to feel comfortable knowing that. So I would encourage all businesses to go on that website. It's called we'veopenedsafely.org and download that poster. And then lastly, the city has been really focusing on, its branding to make sure people understand, what is St. Cloud's story. And one of the things that I really felt needed a more focal point was St. Cloud's businesses. We have great local businesses here that a lot of people don't know exist. And how do we get that? How do we get consumers an appetite for St. Cloud businesses? And so you'll start seeing our social media campaign if you go to on our Facebook and social media pages, where you'll see snapshots, pictures of city administration department directors and city manager and deputy city manager, and they're kind of quoting why it's important to shop local. That you'll be seeing throughout the year, because what it's doing is it's helping businesses know that we as staff are not just employees for the city of St. Cloud, but we definitely, what's that saying? You can't sell it if you don't believe in it. And we believe in supporting our local businesses. And so that's what we are trying to convey with that branding campaign. So I know I said a mouthful, but I really want to make sure everyone kind of knows all the different pieces that are occurring.
Well, I don't think you can say these type things too much, actually. I'm kind of the eternal optimist. We always think, you make lemonade out of lemons, and on and on. I guess that fits with calling our business positively. But we're super blessed to have relationships with City of St. Cloud, City of Kissimmee, Osceola County, and that avails us opportunities to get to know people on a personal level. And I always tell people, if you want to succeed, you want to have if you want to learn about communities and you want to learn how to succeed in those communities, you really need to try to step up and, participate, be advocates for those communities, get to know the people such as yourselves, get to know those people, what makes them tick, how they're thinking. And so what hit me when you were saying all those things was, and it sounds like I'm discounting the challenges that exist. I am in no way doing that. We're a small business. I get it totally. But I actually think that once we do pass through this, and I think we do that with assistance such as the City of St. Cloud, what you are just describing and what the city's putting together for those businesses and organizations. I think we get through this. I think we learn things we would never have learned, right? No way. Mm-hmm. Just wouldn't be confronting things we're confronting. When smooth sailing's happening, you're not thinking, again, coming back to expecting no speed bumps, but they still occur. I think we come out of this with technological advances. I always say that here we talked about this before we went live. Here we are discussing things like you said from our own homes. Those technologies aren't new. The difference is the end user has accepted it as viable. So now we're saying, okay, this is an acceptable way to do business. Let's do it. And I think there will be so many of these things that take place for businesses. The fact that our local communities were able to, Angie Redmond is talking to us tonight, and she's ringing, yay! But she's a great example, and so many other restaurants are throughout the county, getting creative, figuring out how do we stay alive right now when people can't come into our businesses. How do we do this? And figuring out a way to get out there. I think some of those things we're going to hang on to, and I hope that we do. The one thing I hope we hang on to is opening our minds to these businesses. They are vital to the communities. And I really felt, and I have to say it was the most apparent ever, that our community said, okay, we can all stay in our homes right now and just buy groceries and stay home. It wasn't about boredom. It was about literally going out and trying to help our businesses keep those restaurants open. I mean, that's what you do every single day, and so I feel like the community latched onto that desire and that passion. I think that carries through as we move past this.
Absolutely. And I think it's to your, the point that we talked about earlier of lessons learned. And so we learned in 2008 during the last recession about businesses count too. We need to make sure that they are part of the conversation when we talk about restructuring and how to allocate funding. And so this time they were at the forefront when we thought about, okay, how do we recover from this? How do we restructure ourselves? How do we retool and repurpose what we have? You know, one example I think about is, and I know I'm going to date myself, but remember we had the floppy disk a long time ago?
I don't remember those.
And, you know, we converted, you know, from floppy disk to the little small 3-inch disk and then to the flash drive. And now everything's in the cloud.
Right.
And that training process took time. It wasn't from a floppy disk to the cloud. It took stages of development. And that's what our businesses need. You know, they need to see that we support them and we're behind them, but we also want to encourage them now to elevate. Businesses, for example, that are used to doing more walk-in foot traffic, it doesn't mean they can no longer do walk-in foot traffic. But let's talk about siphoning a portion of their business to do e-commerce or to do online marketing so that they can create a presence so that businesses or consumers rather who had not heard of them before know how to find them, and then they can still conduct business. You know, I think that companies like Amazon just kind of snuck up on us, where at the time it seemed like a novelty, and who knew that that was going to be our primary portal for receiving goods and services. So they have led the way, the same way that, for example, Apple did with its iPhone. Let's now follow that lead in such a way that we don't completely do a 180, but we take those golden nuggets and figure out how we can adapt.
Well said. Well said. So we should probably kind of wrap it up, although I don't want to. Want to keep talking about how you continue to help businesses and organizations. If you could just give us the short closing on, again, just reminding businesses and organizations how they can reach out to City of St. Cloud and you, and take advantage of these 3 phases, and certainly phase 1 with the grants.
Sure. So the grant application process is still open. There is still funds available. The best way, you can call me at 407-957-7234 or shoot me an email at economicdevelopment@stcloud.org. I am constantly monitoring both sources, and so I try to get back as soon as possible. And also, you know, the businesses that do reach out, I try to make sure that they are on my distribution list. So since about maybe 3 months or so, since COVID, we've been sending out special message alerts specifically for local businesses so that we keep you in the know, whether there is funding that has come out or whether there is a new marketing campaign, there's a new executive order. We want businesses to have access to information the same way a citizen would. And so I want to make sure, you know, that businesses have that real-time information, because that only helps them in their business.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah. We appreciate, you know, we get those from you, and we appreciate them very much. Well, I guess we should close it. I really appreciate you coming and speaking to us tonight. I'm sure that everyone else that heard and those that will hear later on, as the posts continue to cycle around social channels, you know, very informative, super helpful. You know, it feels like you've got businesses back and organizations backs in this in the community, and so we thank you. It's a priceless thing. Like I said, it can be tough sometimes for small businesses and organizations, and if you know that you have somebody you can bounce things off of, it's a big deal. So we thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Again, this is Keith with Positively Osceola. I have been here and super blessed to be with Antranette Forbes, the Economic Development and Special Projects Manager for the City of St. Cloud. We really appreciate you here. Again, it's so hope you have a great night tonight, and I will see you sometime soon in the City of St. Cloud.
Thank you.
All right. Again, this is Keith with Positively Osceola. Together with Antranette, we're making a positive difference in and around Osceola County. Have a good night, everybody.